Are we here? Who do we have here? Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third live stream question and answer session. Who do we have here? I see Pooba John. Hello, Pooba John. Who else is here? I have a poll. Some of you might be able to see the poll that we have going on here. And I'm going to explain the poll to you in a moment. Somebody say something on the chat so I know that we are truly live, because otherwise I'll get the feeling I'm talking to myself here. I have lots to tell you about YouTube, and I want to know that you are alive and well out there. I see we have 20 viewers. I see we have some thumbs up. Okay, there we go. Jerry, I appreciate that. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry can hear me. That means I bet some others can hear me too. Mark, hello. Mark from London. Mark, you are up very early. No, you're up very late in London, right, Mark? Yeah. All right. So everybody, I have a few things I want to let you know about before we get started. If you have questions, and I hope you do. Hey, Marquita, she can hear me from San Diego. Excellent. A little bit earlier in San Diego, 10 o'clock p.m. in London. Everybody, if you have questions, I hope you do, put a couple of question marks before your question, and that's how I'll know you're out there. Okay, a couple of things I want to say. Those of you who wish to contribute to the cause here can do so via a super chat. And I want to thank you in advance, and thank you to the people who did that last time. It's the $sign you can see down under the chat. And if you have a question that you absolutely have to have answered today, one way to get my attention is to do it via the super chat. Okay, not necessary, but that's one option. Okay, I would like to see if any of you have any feedback about the Beatles boot camp video I posted a few days ago. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit. We have a poll going on. Okay, this is a fun question that I have been going on in my mind, and I want to get some answers from you. Okay, so here is the scenario. And you can vote one way or the other way. Here's the scenario. Would you rather have a photographic memory where you look at a piece of music once on paper, you've got it forever, and then you can devote all your visual attention to your hands, right? Or would you rather have hands that can find anything you want without looking, but you absolutely cannot play unless you have printed music in front of you? Okay, so photographic memory where you can trust your hands. Sorry, photographic memory where you can trust your memory and keep your eyes on your hands the whole time. Okay, but you have to look at your hands the whole time. Or your hands are amazing. They can do anything as long as you have the printed music in front of you, right? I don't know why, but I find this an intriguing question. So I'm very curious where you will fall in this debate. Okay, and we'll watch the results. I think maybe you can see the results as they come through the poll results. Okay, so Yos, J-O-S, Yos. I have a friend named Yos, so I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Tom says hi from Connecticut. Hi, Tom. Martin, also from San Diego. Hey, Martin and Marquita, both from San Diego. And Yos says it's 11 p.m. in Brussels. Nice, nice, excellent. Okay, just for you guys, a 15% off sale during the live stream, just for you guys, on my book and ebooks. Those are the things you see behind me, just for you guys, just during the live stream. If you head over to www.song-bike.com, I'll put that in the live chat here, you will receive 15% off any purchase, and the coupon code to type in, it's not wildly creative, it's going to be Livestream 15, and that gets you 15% off. I don't know if you have to do a capital L in Livestream or not. Okay, so at any time during the live stream, head on over there. We have a bunch of ebooks. These are ebooks. That means they will be emailed to you. These are not hard copy books, with one exception. The hard copy book is also 15% off. This one is a hard copy. You can actually feel it and touch it. Okay, so I want to give you guys a little special thank you for being here, in the chat. Okay, want to wish you happy Memorial Day weekend. I hope you have some fun time with family, friends, and guitar this weekend. And next Saturday, no chat next Saturday, okay? Senior prom here in my part of the world, and I'll be busy making sure my son and his friends have a great time for the senior prom. So no chat next Saturday, okay? So I'll see you in 2 weeks, right? No chat next Saturday. All right, that covers a bunch of the things I wanted to say today. So now let's get to the questions. That's why we're here. So remember, if you would like to ask a question, I hope you do, put a couple of question marks first. And hey, Susan. Susan says, best instructor in the universe. Who, me? Me. Thanks, Susan. Hello, Robert from Australia. Okay, so let's get some questions coming in. And I have plenty of questions I could ask myself, like things that I would not be surprised if you asked me. And I have plenty of those, but I want to hear from you guys, you know. North Country Fisher, welcome back, North Country Fisher. That's a familiar name. So we covered a bunch of things last time. We covered, by the way, this is Saturday. On Monday, I rewatched this whole live chat and I timestamp the questions as they come in. So you can go back and, you know, review, especially for those of you who maybe can't stay for the whole live stream. You can go back on Monday, Tuesday, and look at what you might have missed. Or if you think, oh, what was the, you know, answer to such and such a question, it's all timestamped. So you can look in the description of the video, because remember, this whole thing is being recorded. It goes up on YouTube pretty quickly. But then Monday is when I sit down and rewatch the whole thing and put in the timestamps so we can, you know, hear the questions right away. Harmonica and Guitar Progress says, hey man, how old were you when you first started? Excellent question. 16. I started the guitar when I was 16. And that's the one guitar I left at home this week, my cool 1963 Guild Starfire. I started guitar when I was 16. I had a whole bunch of years of studying drums and percussion with a couple of excellent teachers who were graduates from Berklee College of Music. So I learned a lot about music in general sense and as a drummer. But picking up the guitar, there's some advantages to all those years of playing the drums. But man, I was clueless about so much about the guitar. And I didn't take any lessons for a long time. By the time I finally took a guitar lesson, I was well into my 20s, I guess. I mostly learned out of books and from watching people. Absolutely the slowest way to learn how to play the guitar. And the irony is that I make a living now teaching the guitar. But here's my sales pitch, or here's the silver lining. I think I'm a better guitar teacher because so many things were a complete mystery to me. I'll give you an example in a second. And once I learned how to do it, it meant so much to me. I thought, that's the thing I've been hearing people do. And it became the sense of, like, not even accomplishment. It's more like a sense of excitement, like, oh, that's that thing. I'll give you an example. For years, I was a chord strummer, up and down, bang, you know, all the strings, most of the strings. And I could hear people doing something, better guitar players, and I couldn't quite figure out what they were doing until one day I did it by accident. And by accident, I hit the fat string and then hit the skinnier strings. I'm not even joking. I can remember almost the exact location. I thought, that's that thing I've heard people doing, hitting a bass note and then treble strings, what I call the boom chick strum. Everyone calls it the boom chick strum. Anyways, so I started guitar when I was 16, and my progress was so slow. Anyways, 16 years old. Okay, let's get some more questions. Thanks for asking, though. Dan asks a great question. He says, would you very slowly show how to practice thumb independence for Delta blues. Is there a video you could recommend to practice thumb independence? Yes, I can demonstrate that. And a video that practice thumb independence, I should make that video. That's a great question. So we're talking about finger picking, obviously. And what Dan is referring to is this notion that the thumb is, I'm going to do just the open E string. The thumb is doing one thing, keeping a beat. And you train your fingertips, especially index, middle, and ring, to do anything else, to do whatever it takes. Let's see here. Hopefully that guitar tone is halfway decent. Okay, so Dan, I hope we're in the ballpark of what you're talking about. I hope you can hear this loud and clear. So I'm jumping in. You mentioned Delta blues specifically, and I wouldn't call myself a blues expert, but it is a field I'm familiar with. I'm doing a monotonic bass, monotonic, one tone. For the moment, I'm keeping a steady beat, obviously in the open E string. With my fingertips, these fingertips, I'm playing some little blues riffs, but I'm not interrupting my steady stream of thumb strokes. Okay, it's not easy, but it's the tip of the iceberg. It gets so much harder after that. So this is, depending how you look at it, this is as easy as it gets, you could say. Okay, so hopefully, Dan, and we're in the ballpark of what you're talking about. So to very slowly show what's going on, let's make a quick little exercise out of this. Oh, how about literally open strings, my thumb on the open E, and well, I'm going to challenge you to use your ring finger on the skinny E string. Yes, you could do it with any other finger, but to take your ring finger, the thumb is going to play a 4-count rhythm. 1, 2. And my ring finger is going to join in only on the first of the 4, like this. Watch this. I call this a pinch. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2. It looks really easy. And for a lot of you, it will be easy, for sure. You got to start somewhere, right? Okay. Now, what if we make a little exercise out of it? Now, for some of you, this is like child's play. Good for you, My thumb is not stopping at all. On the very first thumb stroke, I'm including the open skinny E. On the second one, open skinny E, but on the 3rd fret. Why? To get a nice little bluesy melody going. Everything is happening right with the thumb stroke. The next level is to have things that happen in between the thumb strokes. Watch this. Sounds a lot hipper. So check it out. The very first thing, thumb and I'm choosing my ring finger. You could use any finger, but I'm choosing to use my ring finger. Both open strings, we'll call that 1. I'm fretting the 3rd fret, doesn't matter which finger over here, doesn't matter, 3rd fret in the 1st string. I'm doing that pinch again, but independently of my thumb, my ring finger's plucking a 2nd time. Independence, right? And then I return to 2 more thumb strokes. Watch this. I'm going to count out loud as I do it. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3. Not easy to do. yourself time. Okay, so that's the tip of the iceberg. But just to wrap up, Dan, you're asked to bring up a cool point, and it's got my little mind thing about making a video. By the way, last thing I'm going to say about this, I chose to do a monotonic thumb stroke, partly in keeping with this. You mentioned Delta blues. It gets a very specific sound when you keep doing the same bass as opposed to alternating between strings. And also, I chose to do a monotonic bass with my thumb just to keep things simple as well. Okay. Russ says, morning, Jonathan. Russ, you're from Australia, right? I think you are, Russ. North Country Fisher. I think North Country Fisher, you might have asked this question before, and I'm glad you're asking it again because I don't think I answered it. North Country Fisher says, how would an ideal practice session go for you? Chords, scales, strumming, etc. A question that's near and dear to my heart. I'm nuts about practicing the guitar. You have to be a little bit crazy to make any activity part of your daily life, especially being an adult with adult responsibilities, to say, yes, I could do those things, but I'm going to take 20 minutes or 2 hours and do this other activity. You have to be a little nuts. Then again, it also potentially is what keeps you sane. So paradox. Okay, ideal practice session. Scales, arpeggios. We haven't talked too much about arpeggios. Scales and arpeggios, slowly, gently, to get the blood flowing, just to get warmed up. Scales, any scale, can become like a meditative kind of thing. Just to get in the zone, just to keep the world at bay. You're not thinking about those things that you should be doing instead. Any scales are a great way just to get the blood flowing. Don't rush them. It's not about how fast you can play it. It's about getting into the zone. And secondarily, yes, you want to be good at scales. Even though I was just using my bare thumb doing it down picking. Scales and arpeggios. If someone reminds me, we'll talk more about arpeggios later in the lesson. Simple stuff. Whatever's on your plate that you consider relatively simple. Essentially, you want to build up to the point where in the practice session, 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in, where now it's time to work on the hard stuff. For instance, anything involving bar chords. You want to save that for a few minutes into your practice session. I could give you lots of tips about, and I will give you lots of tips about things that are good for you that should be part of your practice session, and then also some philosophical things. So scales are good for you. Arpeggios are good for you. Chords that you are not very good at, that should be part of your practice session. Philosophically, you always want to be reviewing the basics. You also want to have one hard thing that you're working on with the understanding that it's a project, okay? That you work on something that you, deep down, it's not going to sound good right away. And deep down, you are patient with yourself, even though you might not feel immediately patient with yourself. You should be working on what I call a masterpiece, something that is hard, that is within your grasp, probably. Of course, it really is within your grasp, but you have that little voice in your head, like, can I really do this? I think I can. But something that is, you expect to take weeks or even a few months of work. You should have a project like that in mind. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to watch YouTube. You don't want to scroll through endless YouTube videos looking for something to practice. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not the same as practicing. You can get material from YouTube, somehow print it out, copy it over, whatever, and then that can become part of your practicing. But shopping for guitars on sweetwater.com, reverb.com, that does not count as practicing. Get away from your computer. So what you don't want to do is practice the easy stuff, the stuff that gives you so much satisfaction because you're pretty good at it. It takes discipline, but don't do that. At least don't do it for more than a minute or two. You're good at that stuff. And I'm sure I'll think of more stuff if someone prompts me. My final word about practice time for the moment, and this made such an impression on me. I was reading a drum magazine, and there's an interview with a drummer, And he said the most interesting thing, because it hit home. He said, if someone were to walk past my drum studio as I was in the middle of a practice session, they would be astounded to believe I was a professional drummer, because I sound so bad when I'm practicing, because he's working on the stuff that he's not good at. And I thought, that's, yes, yeah, you know. So despite whatever you're good at, you should be spending time on something that would lead a listener to believe that you are really not particularly good at the guitar. Your practice time should include a significant portion on something you're not good at. Last tips, stretch your fingers, just gently stretch your fingers in the, before you practice, in the early stages of practice. Rub your fingers, especially your fretting hand. Get the blood flowing. I know it's warming up for most of us this time of year. No more shoveling snow. Be gentle on yourself. Reach out your arm, rotate your wrist. I'm sure there's videos out there about things like this. And if any of you are involved in the medical profession and can enlighten the rest of us about really relevant things to do. I used to watch a guy who would hold his left shoulder down and then rotate his arm, rotate his wrist, I should say. Okay, moving on. Excellent question, though. Joe says, which musician were you influenced by? Love it. Thank you, Joseph Galasso. Thank you for that question. There's certain, I love lots of kinds of music. There's certain people who I specifically remember learning their songs as part of my progress. And so I'm going to answer your question by naming some specific names and some specific music, because that's a concrete example, as opposed to me just saying, oh, I love this record, or I love, whatever. Also influential, but since we're on a fingerpicking topic, a book I mentioned last time called Fingerstyle Guitar by Ken Perlman. Actually, no, it wasn't that book. It's a great book. There was a book by Stefan Grossman, and it's called Country Blues Guitar. It has a brown cover. There are a handful of Mississippi John Hurt fingerpicking tunes in that book. I've got a whole shelf of books. It's over there somewhere. So Mississippi John Hurt, I spent a lot of time learning my first Mississippi John Hurt song. It's the first time I'd done any finger picking, and it was not a good way to start because I didn't have any foundation, but I stuck with it, and months went by and I got good at it. So Mississippi John Hurt was a big influence on my finger picking. Another way to put it is mastering even just one of his songs was for me a huge accomplishment and something that I was proud of, I am proud of. In hindsight, his stuff is not, in general, it's not wild, it's not wildly difficult in the grand scheme of finger picking guitar in general. But if and when you can play a Mississippi John Hurt tune, even at half speed, nice and steady, alternating thumb. That's why I'm going like this, by the way. Alternating thumb, I should be doing this. So Mississippi John Hurt for acoustic guitar, that meant the world to me when I felt myself actually doing it. It sounded pretty close to what he did. Other guitar players, Steve Cropper for electric guitar. Oh, I was just talking about Steve Cropper today with one of my Saturday students. Man, for instance, realizing that Green Onions, I should be using my Telecaster, but I'm too lazy to plug it in. Realizing that, hey, Steve Cropper and Green Onions, he's not playing chords. He's doing one note riffs or one string at a time. Now, wow, on the guitar, you don't have to always be strumming chords. Sounds funny now, but what did I know, So learning Green Onions, the riff, Steve Cropper's guitar solo in Green Onions, his playing in general. Steve Cropper's stuff, I'm a big fan. One reason I even play a Telecaster is because Steve Cropper played a Telecaster. Once I bought a light blue Telecaster, partly because I have a picture of Steve Cropper playing a light blue Telecaster. I don't have it anymore. It had been modified a little too much for my taste before I received it, but bought it. But anyway, so Steve Cropper, big influence on my playing. And again, not just because I like what he does, but because I worked on a bunch of his songs out of a Steve Cropper guitar book, and I'm sure that affected how I looked at the guitar from then on. One more, Freddie King, Hideaway by Freddie King, which I taught myself by ear, and I'm sure I didn't do it the exact way Freddie King did, but worked on Freddie King tunes a little bit later in my progress. Felt great. So those are some names to think about. Okay, don't forget, everybody, if you put question marks before your question, it makes it easier for me to spot them. Okay, Yo says acoustic and electric. Yo, so you asking, you did start acoustic when it's the moments to go electric. I'm not sure what your question is exactly, Yo. Maybe you can post that again. I know, so yeah, maybe post that again, clarify that for me, and we'll get back to that question. Dan says, Dan, who asked about the Delta blues fingerpicking, you're doing exactly what I want. You make it look so easy, but trust me, this has eluded me for years. Yeah, fingerpicking is deceptive, partly because the hand is faster than the eye, and fingerpicking, all guitar playing, involves such subtle, quick movements. You can't only rely on watching someone and figure out what they did. You just can't. At least don't feel bad at yourself if you watch something over and over and over again and you still can't figure it out. There's such subtle stuff going on. Yeah, I get it. I see a bunch of familiar names. Cinema Music 55 says Big Bill Brunzi played that mono bass line a lot. Yeah, you may be right. Big Bill Brunzi, not someone I went to school on, but a very familiar name, and he's on my list. Okay. Pooba John says, can you play the same with a pick? And Pooba John, are you referring to that Delta blues thing? I hope you are, because I'm doing it. If that's what you're referring to, Pooba John, I'm doing what they call hybrid picking. I'm keeping a steady beat with my pick on my fat E string, and with my middle finger. Sorry to extend my middle finger here. Part of being a guitar teacher involves quite a bit of middle finger stuff and hoping that it doesn't just like talking about the G string. Every time I say, yeah, you're going to want to do that on your G string. Yeah, I think that thought in my head, and I think just keep it G rated. So hybrid picking, yes. If Pooba John, if this is what you're talking about, hybrid picking, my middle finger is doing whatever I know how to do. Wow, my pick is keeping a steady beat. I'm going to do it super slow. Oh, you know what? Let's play Name That Tune. And for extra credit, if you know this little riff I'm playing, who was the first to do it? I'm not talking about Creedence Clearwater Revival, although I love CCR. We all love CCR. But way before CCR, who? Oops. Okay, who did that riff? I just did that riff using my pick, keeping the beat, and my middle finger. Some people, I could envision them, hypothetically, using a thumb pick. Nothing wrong with thumb picks. Using a thumb pick. There's my thumb on the 6th string. And again, my middle finger, really now my index is freed up, right? Because my index was holding the pick before, now it's freed up. Here's my index finger and my thumb. And I get my middle finger. How about my index and my middle? Yeah, it's another option. Okay. Hey, Joseph, thank you for the super chat. Those of you who wish to contribute to my life's work, I appreciate the super chat down there at the bottom, that little dollar sign at the bottom of the chat. Harmonica and Guitar Progress says, nice advice, John. I have this dark blues project going now. Different tuning than I'm used to. Yeah. Stephen says, arpeggio, that's a new word for me. Yes, arpeggio. Here's the official arpeggio is what we're talking about. Long story short, an arpeggio is when you take a chord and you play the strings individually. Name this tune. I know you know it. So when the Animals did that tune, the Animals had that nice arpeggio. They learned it from Bob Dylan, who on his first record, he did not do it as an arpeggio. He did Bob Dylan strumming it. The Animals turned it into a arpeggio riff. So that's one definition of the word arpeggio. That's how us guitar players can conceive of an arpeggio. In the grand scheme of things, an arpeggio is not just a chord that you grab and then you do the strings one at a time. An arpeggio in the big picture for any instrument is when you play the notes of the chord as individual notes. So what I just did there was not an arpeggio, but oops. I just played an arpeggio there that didn't necessarily resemble a chord that you'd play down there, but nevertheless, it has the ingredients. In this case, it's a C major arpeggio. C, E, G, C, E, G, C. And arpeggios make great exercises. I was at a used bookstore. I found a book called Melodic Arpeggios. So I don't remember the author's name. Galbo, Mark Galbo, G-A-R-B-O, Melodic Arpeggios. And between you and me, I paid about $4 for it as a used book. Melodic Arpeggios, I'm adding that to the chat. And it's just I've been spending, for months now, I've been working on arpeggio exercises from this book. Somehow I didn't practice arpeggios as a younger person, and now I'm trying to catch up for lost time. So arpeggio is a great, at a minimum, your left hand, your fretting hand gets a great workout. If you do down up picking while you practice arpeggios, then your right hand gets a good workout. So I'll leave it at that for now. Okay. Paul, Music. Sorry, Paul. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Paul says, can you help explain when learning a new song, the chords that are above the lyrics? How does that work? Yeah. We live in a world where most any semi-famous song, someone's posted the chords and the lyrics online, but sometimes all you get, right, is row after row after row of lyrics. And then above certain lyrics, it just says, F, the letter F, right? And then what do? So best case scenario, at a minimum, they've lined it up so at least they have the exact right word that the singer sings with a chord right above it. You can't always count on that, but ideally. So Paul, when you're learning a new song, there's a couple of things you have to know. So if you're learning a new song, presumably you know the song up here. You've heard the song a whole bunch of times and you're learning it because you like it. Potentially you're learning it because someone in your community said, hey, would you learn this song for Sunday or something? But it still makes a huge amount of difference if you could hear some version of the song. So either you know it because you've heard it your whole life, because it's a CCR song or whatever, Beatles song, or somehow whoever is asking you to do the song, they can provide you with a reference, right? If you don't have a reference and if you've never heard the song before, hang on, I have advice for you, but it's not ideal, right? Okay. Then number one, either trust your memory or get a reference to song. Number two, scan through the chords that are listed there. Hopefully you know all of them. If you don't, you got to do your homework and figure out if it says D minor 7, you're like, I've never played D minor 7. got to Google it, got to figure out how to play D minor 7, you know, and there may be more than one way of playing it. And of course there's multiple ways of playing every chord. So you've got to figure out which is the best way that works for you. If you know all the chords in the song, nice, easy, you know, A minor and G and Life is Good, then you're at the final moment where, okay, so how does my picking hand strum? Because so often they don't tell you what to do. You can't go wrong just to start off with simple strumming. I'm on my G chord right there. Nice steady quarter notes, right where you're tapping your foot. Don't worry about what the actual pattern is on the recording. Just get up and running, you know, get the plane off the ground, you know. Try to hum along, sing along with the words. Ideally, you can do that. Doesn't mean you have to sing beautifully. Saw her today at the reception. This is not the key that Rolling Stones do it in, but glass of wine in her hands. What song is this? I knew she was gonna make a connection. So I'm doing G and C back and forth. I'm singing about as well as I can, but I'm not worried about that because we're all friends here, right? This is not how the Rolling Stones are strumming that song, Keith Richards, right? But we're up and running, okay? You guys, someone can join in. A drummer can, where's my drums? A drummer can join in. We're up and running, okay? The campfire version. If you sit around the campfire and this is how you're strumming the song and people are singing along and Life is Good, and someone complains and someone says, you know, the Rolling Stones don't do it in that key. They're out of the campfire. They got to go jump in the lake or something. You know, it's a campfire version. So getting back to your question, Paul, if you know the song, if you know the chords, now you have a way to get up and running. But what you're missing, time for show and tell, what you're missing is the strum pattern. How does the song go? Remember I said I was having a sale for you guys. Right now, you can get the electronic version of this book. And it's so many pages, 105, 107 pages. You are why I wrote this book. You're why I wrote this book. Because they never tell you how to strum the song. So this book is now 15% off if you go to my website and you type in the coupon code. Just scroll up on the chat. You'll see the website and the coupon code. You can get this book, the Strum Pattern Bible. Oh, remember when I said my training is as a drummer? This is the way a drummer looks at playing rhythm guitar. A drummer's like, what's the pattern? Give me the pattern. If you give me the pattern, I'm all set. If you don't give me the pattern, what the heck, right? So the Strum Pattern Bible. It has how many songs? A lot of songs. I don't know. It has that many songs, but it's not the entire song. It's like a one page. Okay, Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith. Why not? Okay. The way the rhythm guitar goes for Sweet Emotion is a valuable skill to learn. So I'm using Sweet Emotion as an example because it's fun to learn how to strum a real song. The idea is you make your way through the book. It has a section on finger picking patterns and pick patterns, and you learn a whole bunch of ways to strum. And then when you come across the vast majority of songs posted on the internet, ultimateguitar.com, whatever, and they don't tell you how to strum it, they just tell you the chords and the lyrics, you'll say, wait a minute, I think I can take this pattern that I learned and apply it to the song, and now you're getting somewhere, you know. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay. Jerry makes a good point. He says, when someone comes in the house, when I'm practicing, I quickly change to something I know so I don't sound so bad. Yep. I've been there, you know. I've been there. Hey, Beginner Guitar, thanks for joining in. Beginner Guitar is our moderator. He makes sure that we keep things guitar related and we keep love in our hearts here. Eli says, you can't always get what you want. You got it. I heard scrolling up there. Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm catching up on you guys. I see people did recognize Susie Q. Susie Q, made famous by Dale Hawkins. Good one, Joseph. Joseph knew it was Dale Hawkins. Okay. I'm going to take a moment and thank you for being here. Very fun. No live stream next Saturday. Sorry, I got to take next Saturday off, but I'll be back in 2 weeks. Some of you may see commercials during this live stream. I apologize, but thank you for your patience. I don't believe you miss anything. I think the live stream just gets paused, and when you skip over the commercials like we all do, you don't miss anything. If any of you had the opportunity to watch the Beatles video I put out a few days ago, I'm curious about any feedback about that. Okay, the poll. There's a poll in the live stream this week, and I'm going to scroll up for a minute, and let's see if we can see. I never did a poll before. And the poll is, just to recap, the poll is, if you could have a superpower, would you like your superpower to be a photographic memory, so you never have to look at music, and you can just watch your hands, or would you prefer your superpower to be your hands, you never need to look at your hands because you're so gifted, but you can't play a single note unless someone puts the paper in front of you? I know it's a weird question, but I'm very curious. Now, this poll is supposed to be, it says poll complete. The poll is not complete. Poll complete, 3 votes. I don't know why it says the poll is complete. But nevertheless, you can answer in the comments. I'm curious what you say. Okay, I'm scrolling down because I know I've missed a few questions. Stephen from Maine. Don't forget, I'm coming to Maine this summer, Stephen. We'll cross paths if we can. Okay, Charlie Beagle, you're asking a very important question. Can't you just go down to the crossroads and make a deal with the devil? It's always an option. Where exactly are the crossroads? I can tell you that they are not here where I live in Connecticut. So if you find them, you can let us know. But see if you can avoid the deal with the devil. FJM says, I have a problem strumming with a pick. It's not a clean sound, but sounds floppy, kind of like playing a card against a bicycle wheel spoke. Yeah, any thoughts? Gotcha. It's a great question. Number one, make sure you're not using a floppy pick. The Fender medium, the typical standard Fender medium, which I think is about 0.78 millimeters, 0.8 millimeters. You want to have that as the thickness at a minimum. Your basic Fender pick that many of us have come across that looks like a brown tortoiseshell kind of color. Anything less than 3/4 of a millimeter. Oh, if you can easily. Oh no, I guess it's easily bent. Bottom line is, don't use floppy paper thin picks because it'll sound like exactly what you described. I use a 1 millimeter pick. I happen to like these little small. Some people call them jazz size or mandolin size. But anyways, don't use a thin pick. Literally, if the pick says thin on it, don't use it. Medium or thicker. Anything but a thin pick. Okay. One thing that you didn't mention, FJM, is how long you've been playing the guitar. In general, in the beginning, people feel very strange using a pick. They'll come to their first lesson, second lesson, third lesson, and they'll say, the pick doesn't feel right. Can I just play with my bare fingers? And I say, no, you can't. Because finger picking is a whole separate art and discipline, and I love teaching it. And I tell my students, we'll do real finger picking, but the first couple of lessons is not enough time to decide for the rest of your life that you're never going to use a pick again, because picks can feel strange in the beginning. So you kind of have to just suck it up. But to get back to your point, it's not a clean sound, but it sounds floppy. Yeah. So make sure your pick is not too thin. Make sure you hold the pick right. Human nature is to pinch a pick like that. And you will see famous guitar players holding it that way. You can see it a mile away because it kind of, sometimes you can see like an egg shape in here. Their wrist might be poking out in that direction, like poking away from the guitar. Doesn't mean they're bad guitar players. It just means that no one clued them into the advantages of holding it the right way. So what's the right way? You make a loose fist with your right hand. The pick goes between your thumb and your index finger. The index finger is acting just as a wall. And the pick goes against your index finger and is now pointing down towards the floor. The pick is pointing down towards the floor. So the pick is perpendicular to the thumb. Now, you may already be holding the pick that way. The next step over time is finding the sweet spot where you're holding the pick in a loose, relaxed way, but you don't drop it, and you're going to drop it. In fact, I would rather work with a student who chronically drops their pick than with a student who is holding the pick too tightly, So I call it the sweet spot, and you find the sweet spot over time. And real quick, exactly how tightly you hold the pick depends on exactly what you're trying to accomplish. If I'm doing a nice shuffle pattern, I want to really bang it out. I'm holding the pick relatively tightly. But if I'm going, I'm holding the pick surprisingly loosely. I mean, it's just about to fall out of my hands. So my final words, FJM, is stick with the pick. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. It's worth it, and be patient with yourself. But hopefully some of the things I mentioned are helpful. And don't let me discourage you from playing with your bare fingers. Just learn it the right way. I mean, ideally, you have a neighborhood music school in your community and you go there and you learn from a proper teacher, learn how to do proper finger picking. What I don't recommend is kind of winging it and saying, I'm just going to kind of... It's not that that's a horrible thing to do. It's just that you don't want to limit yourself to that. Proper finger picking is so rewarding, and you'll be glad you put your mind to it and did it. Okay. Yo says, I am a bass player. Can guitar help me to get better at the bass? Yeah, sure. Although, thank you for being a bass player. Thank you for your service. The world does not have enough bass players. So if any of you are looking to expand your circle of friends, just be a bass player. The world needs you. I've never met a working bass player who doesn't play in 2 or 3 or 4 bands, working, bar bands that play at the local casino, whatever. There's not enough bass players to go around. So can playing the guitar help you get better at the bass? Yes, although I would answer yes to anything. Would playing the trumpet help you be a better saxophone player? Would playing the saxophone help you be a better banjo player? I'm always going to say yes. Here's one of my specific points. Being a guitar player can help you as a bass player because of the harmonies that are kind of built into guitar playing. And bass in general is a single note instrument, right? A dum, 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 dum. And guitar potentially is full of all this harmonic information when you strum a whole chord. So I think it would help you keep your ear open to all the harmonic possibilities, as opposed to just focusing on hitting the root note and the fifth and stuff like that. Now, I don't know how advanced a bass player you are. You might be very advanced, but yeah. Plus, if you in a perfect world, you practice the bass for an hour. You go over, you grab the guitar, you practice the guitar for an hour. You're just making your left hand that much smarter, and that's a beautiful thing, Okay. So Joseph says, been learning to play landslide with a thumb and first and second fingers. Good. Getting better at it, doing it for hours. Excellent. Joseph, he says, I've learned a lot from you for the past 12 years. I appreciate that, Joseph. Okay, Paul Hattersley. Hello, Paul. He says, hello, John. I'm left-handed, learning right-handed. I'm confused on which I should be playing. Left-handed feels more natural. Always trust your instinct. I'm going to say that about lots of stuff during these live streams. Always trust your instinct. I understand lefties have their own, mountains to climb here. So just to be clear, there's how you were born, and then there's how you choose to approach the guitar. If you're choosing to strum the strings with your right hand, then you're playing like a right-handed player. And if you choose to strum the strings with your left hand, right, then you're playing like a left-handed player. Righties never play like a lefty. Lefties often play like a righty intentionally. So the big advantage of that, I'm going to list 2 advantages. Your smart hand is doing this tricky stuff. That would seem to me like a really cool advantage. And secondly, shopping. It's, lefty guitars are hard to find. There used to be, hopefully there still is, a guitar store in Houston, maybe, called Southpaw Guitars, which I believe is nothing but lefty guitars, and you pay a little bit extra if you buy a righty guitar from them, which is kind of hilarious. So getting back to your point, Paul, if you're left-handed, I would recommend trusting your instinct, and I would 100% support your choice to actually purchase a left-handed guitar and play with your left hand over here. And go ahead and actually buy a lefty guitar. It's not appropriate to simply restring the guitar because the guitar is not a symmetrical instrument. It looks symmetrical. Forget the pickguard for a second. Even though it looks symmetrical, one example, see how the saddle, this white piece of the saddle, see how it's not a straight line? That's intentional. It's not supposed to be parallel to the brown bridge here, right? See how it's an angled line, right? So that's how it is for a righty guitar, and for a lefty, it should be the exact opposite. So that's just one example. Also, the slots cut in the nut, cut wider for the fat string and skinnier for the skinny string. That's also specific for a right-handed guitar. You don't just take a righty guitar and flip the strings around. So treat yourself to a lefty guitar, play like a lefty. You have my support and encouragement. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah, trust your instinct. I know it's not easy finding a lefty guitar, but they're out there. They're out there. Okay. Thank you. Are you commenters? How are we doing here? We have 53 approximately people here in the chat. That's awesome. Okay. I'm looking at oh, hey, I recognize that name. Okay, I can't say it, but AZDH85224. I believe you feel like I've known you for years. You've commented on my videos. Your name stands out to me. Can you play "Don't Fear the Reaper"? Good picking exercise. No, it's my nemesis, man. I mean, yes, I can technically play "Don't Fear the Reaper," but if I were in a cover band playing tonight at a bar and my responsibility was nailing that riff over and over again, I guarantee you I would not nail it over and over again consistently. That's a tricky riff, man, to do it smooth and steady. So, hey, I'm not going to lie. And if this makes some of you feel better about shortcomings in your own repertoire, then I've done my job. Don't Fear the Reaper is a tricky little riff. And again, my goal and your goal should be consistency. It's not about, hey, Sunday morning I played the riff right. It's like playing it over and over again in front of people, with a stomach full of beer and pizza, and the drummer kicks it off a little bit fast, then that's how you know if you know the riff, right? Right? Yeah. I don't recall if I ever made a video on Don't Fear the Reaper. If I did make a video on Don't Fear the Reaper, and I might have, because I made 399 videos in 399 days, and most of them are a blur to me. If I did, I bet you anything, I play it slightly slower than the original for sure. And I bet I play it twice and then it sort of fades out as if I could keep playing it 20 more times. But for the sake of brevity, I'm only playing it twice. And if I didn't make a video of Don't Fear the Reaper, then now you know why. I encourage all of you to do it. Okay, so Susie Q by Dale Hawkins, we covered that. How's the Rising Sun? Joseph is commenting on The Wait, the video by The Wait. The Wait by the band is one of those great guitar intros that there seems to be some debate about exactly how Robbie Robertson played that exact riff. It's a great riff. I don't want to get into the debate. I don't know what the debate. I don't remember what the debate is. I just know people feel everyone has their own opinion, but it's a great riff. Okay. Let's see. Don't forget the poll question. Maybe I'll start the question again. The poll again. Okay, let's do this. Let's start the poll fresh because it seemed to say that the poll had closed. Okay, the question. I'm going to make it simple. Here's the poll question. Do you wish, I'm just going to call this Do you wish that your hands could play without looking at your hands without looking, okay, versus photo, you can play, you don't need to look at your hands, right? Yeah, versus having a photographic memory so that you can look at your hands. But remember, I'm making a big deal about this, I know, but I'm curious about your answers. Your superpower is you don't have to look at your hands at all, but you need sheet music in front of you constantly. You cannot play a note without the sheet music in front of you, but your hands can always find the right note. Would you like that superpower, or the superpower where you look at something, bang, you got it memorized, and then you can look at your hands? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so hands without looking. Now, regardless of poll results, okay. Regardless of the poll results, okay, and here we are, I'm starting the poll now. Okay, so I think it's going to show up at the top of the chat. Regardless of the poll results, the reason this is fascinating to me is it's this dilemma that's unique to certain musicians. The guitar is a visual instrument, and we want to look at it so bad. We play better when we look at the guitar, 100%. We play better. We also have people like me that present you with printed information that you have to look at because those are your instructions. It's the recipe, right? But how can you look at everything? It's bad enough to choose between the two hands. So it's a dilemma. Who also has this dilemma? Piano players, right? They want to look at their hands, but they got to look at the music. It's a dilemma. Who does not have? How about sax players? Here's my saxophone, right? They can't see their hands anyways. They don't worry about this. They laugh at this because they're just looking at the music and they're just playing. Trumpet players, right? They got 3 valves. They're just looking at the music and they're playing trumpet. Us guitar players, so you got the idea. I'm curious, regardless of the poll results, it's an interesting thing to think about. Michael Carlson makes a good point. Jonathan, you are always making a fist when you hold the pick. Yeah. Make a loose fist, and the pick slides in there, pointing perpendicular to the thumb. I will say this: I'm guilty. Once I'm up and running, I'm guilty of letting my fist relax. So now these fingers are hanging down. It's neither good nor bad, but it's a reflection of being relaxed, as opposed to propping up my hand. I do not recommend, no one would recommend that, propping your hand up. It gives you a sense of control, like your hand can't get too far away, but do not do that. Do not do that. So when you see my fingers hanging down, they are simply hanging down. Sometimes my pinky might lightly be touching the pick guard, or just look like a total pro and keep your fingers lightly curled up. Yeah, okay, you get the idea. Okay, scrolling. Okay, Pooba John is saying melody, harmony, rhythm, timbre. Which two are mostly related to each other? Timbre is the tone of the instrument. It's why strumming a metal guitar sounds different than strumming a wood guitar, right? Play the same song, it's going to sound different because the timbre is different. Timbre. Melody, harmony, rhythm. Which two are mostly related to each other? I'm going to say the melody and the rhythm, because if you're going to sing a song, you can't just sing the right notes. You have to sing it in the right rhythm, right? Happy birthday to you, right? Happy birthday to you. Sounds like gibberish, right? You got to say it together. Harmony is a bonus. Harmony is what makes everything sound so sweet and powerful and fascinating and mysterious and whatever. So harmony is, you can have a beautiful song with no harmony, right? Just someone getting up and just belting out the Star Spangled Banner or something, and timbre is, one way you judge if you like something or not. You hear two people singing the song and you think, I like the sound of that person's voice better, you know. And if you're purely just comparing the not who can hit the high notes, but you know, you're judging them on the timbre, the tone that they're producing. Yeah, timbre. Okay. Let's see here. Don't forget, put those question marks first. People put those question marks before the question, and that'll save us all a bit of time. Jay Jones says, I really like an unknown song that I want to play as a chord melody as I do not sing. Do I do a private consult for a song that would not be popular for everyone? Short answer, I do teach lessons, taught lessons pretty much full-time since 1992, which is amazing because I'm only 29 years old. But yes, so I do teach lessons, including some of you in this chat know me from teaching like with Skype or FaceTime or something. Mostly I teach here in my little guitar studio on Main Street. So that's the good news. Bad news is I'm so booked up, man. I'm sorry. I can't help you. I'm too much of a good thing. I got too many students, which I'm grateful for. I don't mean to say too many students. I have a waiting list, which sounds like, hey, that's great. But then the waiting list becomes a project, right? It's like, oh, I have an opening on Wednesdays. Let me go through the waiting list. Let me email 6 people and see who can come on Wednesdays, and it just becomes a project, which I'm grateful for. But I wish I had time to help, you know, directly. Dan says, I would go with a photographic memory. It would translate to other areas besides music. Now you're thinking ahead, you know. Harmonica and guitar progress says, I don't know, John. In some situations, a fender thin is the way to strum. Yes. And I'll give you a situation. In the recording studio, you're in the recording studio, you're going for a specific sound, for a specific recording, then 100% do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Whatever, pick with a pick, without a pick, whatever it takes. Yeah, that's one scenario where I 100% agree with you in general. So yeah. So Joseph, you say, do I teach that song? Which song, Joseph? I've already forgotten whatever song I use as an example. I'm sure I already forgot that. Jay Jones, you are welcome for the videos I've made in the past. Thank you. Scott, hey, welcome, Scott. You are late, but hey, now's a good time to remind you that this whole thing is being recorded, including the chat. So you can watch all this again. Monday, I sit down, I timestamp the video so you can zip ahead to here, look at a specific question. You can see in the description of the video on Monday what question was asked at what point. You can zip ahead to that point. Hey, let me take a minute and thank you for watching. Don't forget, you can contribute to the cause here via the super chat option down at the bottom of the screen, that little $ at the bottom of the screen. I appreciate that. And for those of you who have already contributed super chat dollars, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Don't forget, we got a poll question going up at the top of the page, so jump in on that poll question. My book and ebooks are on sale, 15% off during the live stream. Okay, during the live stream, head over to song-bike.com, type in the coupon code Livestream15, Livestream15. You'll get 15% off. Most of them are ebooks. They look like real books, but they are ebooks. They don't come in the mail. They come as an email to you. You get a link, except for the Hal Leonard book, which is a real physical book. I get your order and it comes to you in the mail. If you are overseas, like some of you, it's too expensive to ship this overseas. You can just get it from Amazon, okay, with my thanks. If you are outside the continental US. Okay. These are just some things I wanted to make sure I mentioned. Thanks again to our moderator, Beginning Guitar. He's keeping it clean. I mentioned no live chat next Saturday, but I'll see you in 2 weeks after today's live chat. I will wish you a happy Memorial Day weekend. I want to throw an idea by you folks. I have a video coming up soon. I probably will be filming it next week and then releasing it soon. Okay, here is the video. Instead of simply teaching a song, I wanted to present this as a challenge where you each can go as deep into the song as you want to. And the idea here is, how good are you at the guitar? How good are you? We take a song. In this case, it's going to be Stand By Me, good old Stand By Me, right? And I'm going to show 9 or so levels of playing Stand By Me, where at first you might just, be asked in the very beginning, right? You recognize that. Playing a bass line, right? One string at a time, to a more advanced version, more advanced, until, you see, hey, where do you fall? So what do you think of that idea? The Stand By Me is a great vehicle for that, because it's 4 chords over and over again, and it never changes, and it's a familiar song. So I'm curious to see what you'd think of a video. Would you watch that kind of video? It's not just about learning how to play Stand By Me. It's sort of like gauging where you fit in your own abilities. I thought that'd be kind of a cool thing to do. I'm sure there's dozens and dozens of videos on how to play Stand By Me. I might have made one myself. I don't know. I think I did. I should. But this is a little bit different. This is, what skills are you capable of? Doing it completely with bar chords, for example. That would be like an extreme level of it. One thing that's interesting about Stand By Me is there's not a distinctive, obvious guitar part. But that's a good thing. That means we can approach it based on whatever our abilities are, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to play such and such a song. This is what the guitar player truly does. And either you're doing it or you're not doing it. There's no in between. You get the idea. So give me a little feedback, if you don't mind, about how you would feel about watching that video. Okay, MRAM63. Hello, MRAM. MRAM asks, when using a pick, do you teach with the strumming hand in a fist or fingers splayed out? Yeah, in a fist. Yeah, it's a good question. But, because I know people watch me, my students are sitting, 2 feet away from me, and they're watching what I do, I'll point out, yeah, you'll see my fingers sometimes just hanging down, and that is not a big deal, because I'm doing it as a reflection of how relaxed I am, as opposed to, like I said, propping my fingers up. By the way, let's talk for 1 second. A million years ago, I worked in a guitar store, and I was a very inexperienced guitar player. And the guitar teachers, saw me noodling around on these guitars and holding the pick like this. And they said, no, you can't, don't. So they told me the right way to hold the pick, which is what I'm showing you here too, right? But they didn't tell me why it was significant. Why? I didn't think to ask why. I just kind of kept my mouth shut and very quickly changed to what they said. So here's what I've come up with over the years. I'm rolling up my arm here to demonstrate. You hold the pick the intuitive way, which is also the wrong way, which everyone does at first. I'd be amazed if you didn't hold the pick this way at first, because you're human. Someone hands you a slippery little thing. The idea is you don't drop it, and you hold the wrong way, and you will never drop the pick. And if that's your goal, you will never drop the pick, holding it as a pinch between 2 fingers. Okay. And then you go to play the guitar. You can play the guitar that way. There are famous guitar players who hold the pick that way. But why is it wrong? Now, this is my opinion, but that's why we're here, right? I guess to see what this joker has to say. Okay. To play even the most rudimentary sound, holding the pick the wrong way, I'm rotating all of this. That's a lot. That's a lot for one sound. You agree, right? Now, you hold the right way, and it's a quick little flick. It's still engaging. It's still engaging. I see the muscle right there moving a little bit. It's a much more subtle movement. Allows for a lot more sensitivity. I'm doing some down up picking on my muted. I'm doing a little palm muting here. My muted E string. You can play with a lot more sensitivity and speed, holding it the right way. But don't take my word for it. Keep your eyes open. Well, no, take my word for it. But keep your eyes open and see if you can spot some famous guitar players who hold the pick the wrong way, which begs the question, is it really wrong if there's great guitar players who hold that way? And I would answer, that's not what makes them such good guitar players. They're good in spite of the fact that they're holding it the wrong way, So it's my 2 cents. Okay. Yes, Beginner Guitar says, hey, everybody, like and subscribe. You guys, I have a few more subscribers to go, and I'll be at 200,000 subscribers. So if any of you would be so kind as to subscribe if you're not already, I appreciate it. When I start the live chat, YouTube always asks me, do you want to limit the live chat today to only people who have subscribed to the channel? And I have not limited it that way because, you know, if I do my job right, you're going to want to subscribe anyways, right? So, so if some of you have not subscribed, stick around and maybe I can convince you to subscribe. And if you are already convinced, then please do subscribe. It actually makes a difference. You know, it helps me in multiple tangible and intangible ways if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate it. And it costs you nothing, right? It costs you one little click. Okay. Eunice says, if I tell you my chord progression, can you play it in a different rhythm? Yes. Yep. The chord progression reflects what your fretting hand is going to do, right? And how you strum or finger pick or whatever is totally up to you, and it can change and you can adapt. And give you a quick example. Say you're, well, say we'll use Stand By Me as an example. And someone just wants to sing Stand By Me. And I'm just going to give this a nice chord strumming. G to E minor. So you go G, E minor, C, D. Okay, so that's a perfectly appropriate way in that context to play Stand By Me, right? Just some nice casual, I call that folky strumming, right? But some band says, hey, you want to sit in with our band in the bar? Yeah, I'd love to. We got one song left. Okay, what is it? Stand By Me in the key of G. Great. Well, I'm not going to do that for a lot of reasons. Number one, I'm not going to do anything at first. I'm going to let them kick off the tune, and I'm going to just sort of listen for a second. It's my superpower. I have the common sense to, like, believe it or not, I have the common sense to keep my mouth shut and see, okay, what have they got going on? It's presumably there's a guitar player in the band. I'm not going to do what that guitar player is doing. He or she has that covered. I'm going to see what can I do to fit in. And so let's say that guitar player in the band is banging out the chords, what I just did. I might play, remember it's G, E minor, C, D. I might play those chords as power chords. I'm going to do a nice easy E minor or E power chord. So totally different than what I did a minute ago, but appropriate in that situation. So Eunice, I'm wondering if that answers your question. If the chord progression you can't change, the strumming you can change. I can't resist. What if when the night has come? Here's a finger picking, right? And the land is dark. Totally different. And the moon is on the lights. Right? Totally different. I'm just doing a little finger picking pattern. There's an occasion where that might be the appropriate thing to do. Okay. Let's see where we're at here. Jonathan, Michael points out, Jonathan, you're always making a fist when you hold a pick. Power to the people. Yeah, that because you should. That is how you hold the pick. And like I keep saying, there are moments when I just relax and let my fingers hang down. Nothing wrong with that, because it doesn't change what's happening at the core. It's still my thumb holding the pick against the side of my index finger. So the fact that these fingers hang down doesn't change what's happening at the core. That's the significant thing. If I could pick one thing that I plead with all of you to do, it's that thing. What happens with these fingers is somewhat less important. But remember, don't press into the guitar, whatever you do. Don't do that. Don't do that. And some of you do it and you don't know you're doing it. I promise you, some of you do it and you don't know you're doing it. Don't do that. Okay. Harmonica and Guitar Progress says, John, what do you think of a right-handed guitar turn to left-handed and back to right-handed? I have a Gibson. This was the case. It sounds good. No, that's great. My only question is, were any permanent modifications done at any point in the process? And you might know that the answer to that question. If you don't know, bring it to a guitar tech or a luthier and say, hey, I just want to make sure this is exactly how it should be for the right-handed player. Anything can be undone, anything can be repaired. With some guitars, that price might be worth more than the value of the guitar, not a Gibson necessarily, but if you get quoted $150 repair bill and you know for a fact the guitar is only worth $125 and maybe you got it at a yard sale for $40, then you have to, you know what I'm saying. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but you have to think about it. Okay. Cinema Music 55 says, regarding picks, a heavier pick for flat picking, for example, will keep up with your attack on the strings, where too flexible pick will drag behind. That's right. Couldn't say it better myself, Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the term flat picking for 1 second. Most of us call this a pick. Some people call it a flat pick to differentiate it probably from, say, like a thumb pick or whatever else, so a flat pick. But when in general, when the term flat picking is used, specifically flat picking is used almost always to specifically mean bluegrass, awesome, rapid fire, tasteful, cool bluegrass picking. So if I heard someone won a national flat picking contest, I know they're not doing jazz, they're not doing rock and roll, they're playing acoustic guitar, probably a nice big old dreadnought acoustic guitar, using a nice heavy pick, and they're playing awesome. Oh, Molly Tuttle. Many of you know the name Molly Tuttle. I made a note to myself that I wanted to share names. I'm going to put this in the chat. I want to share names of extremely talented guitar players who are out there in the world. And so she's one of them. Flat picking, playing with a nice heavyish pick, bluegrass, acoustic guitar, awesome stuff. So in general, when you hear flat picking, that's what they're talking about. Everybody check out Molly Tuttle. She's one of the bright shining lights of guitar at the moment. Well, forever, right? Forever. But she's someone whose name has become familiar to me in the last few years. Let's see where we're at here. Oh, I got to scroll up, you guys. I love all these chats. Okay. I'm afraid I'm going to miss some of these. I don't want to miss any of these. Okay. Charlie Beagle. Charlie Beagle is Party Marty. Is that Marty Schwartz? Party Marty, I assume. I've never heard him referred that way as Party Marty. You get us confused. No, Charlie, you cannot confuse me with Marty Schwartz, except I'm sure he's a really nice guy. So in that sense, but Marty Schwartz. Okay. Okay. Okay, Jerry is asking a great question, and he put the question marks first, which I appreciate. Jerry Stillwell asks, when going to smaller diameter strings, say from 12 thousandths of an inch to 53 thousandths of an inch, to 11 thousandths of an inch to 52 thousandths of an inch, should it require a neck adjustment? No, I don't think so. Your fingers will tell you right away, think about what's more sensitive than your fingertips, right? So no, I don't think it would require a neck adjustment. You are putting less tension on the guitar, which is a great idea. I'm a fan of light strings in general. If you get too light, yes, that can lead to some problems. I mean, there's a type of string often called silk and steel, which are extremely light. And to me, their main purpose is, should you buy a guitar that's over 100 years old and was not made for these times? Yeah, silk and steel is probably an appropriate choice. But so Jerry, quick answer to your question: nope, shouldn't need a neck adjustment. But restring it, give it a few days, a few practice sessions, let everything settle in, and then your fingers will tell you. But because you're going from a thicker string to a thinner string, I don't foresee problems with that. Johnny Midnight says, tips for using slide on guitar. Yeah, slide guitar is a beautiful thing. I'm a big Ry Cooder fan. Oh, while I'm plugging music, I will continue this question in a minute. If any of you want to hear what I consider to be one of the most beautiful slide guitar solos, just in a typical song, there is a track that I've loved for years. Okay, here's my idea of a slide guitar solo that is perfection. John Hiatt has a great album called Bring the Family. And on that album, Ry Cooder plays on all. Check out his band. John Hiatt's band is Ry Cooder on guitar, Nick Lowe on bass. Nick Lowe, who wrote I Knew the Bride When She Used to Rock and Roll. And Nick Lowe wrote What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. I mean, among many of his songs. So that's the bass player. And then Jim Keltner on the drums. And Jim Keltner doesn't get better than Jim Keltner on the drums. So John Hiatt wrote a bunch of great songs. These guys made them sound great. And there's one track on the album called Lipstick Sunset. And Ry Cooder's slide guitar solo on Lipstick Sunset is sublime. Okay, so tips, Johnny Midnight, tips on using slide on guitar. One tip I have is get the right slide. And whatever slide you use, whatever finger you use, you want a little bit of your finger to stick out. Clearly, you want it to be loose enough that you can get it off at the end of the day, but tight enough that it's not going anywhere. I don't know why this works, but I can hold my finger upside down. The slide doesn't fall off unless I wiggle it a little bit. The material is totally up to you. The weight, the thickness, all that is totally up to you. You'll probably end up trying a few different ones. And if you devote yourself to being a slide guitar player, not just a passing thing, but it becomes part of your practice regimen, and you're like, I'm going to be a slide guitar player, then over time you'll try a bunch of different slides, and before you decide the one that's perfect for you. Some people, smart people, say glass or glass type stuff, Pyrex, is great on acoustic guitar. On electric guitar. The glassy stuff is great on electric guitar, and metal works well on acoustic guitar. That's sort of, that's how some people feel. I get that. This is brass, and it is heavier than I think is good for electric guitar. So I don't use it on electric guitar. Anyways, so number one answer to your question, choose your slide wisely. A slide would be a tricky thing to get online. You gotta try them out, So ideally, either you buy 4 slides with the intention of sending 3 of them back, which that's the way of the world, or you go to a music shop and you can actually try a whole bunch of ones and see what works. So that's number one. Get the right slide for you, even if it means buying and returning and buying and returning. I highly recommend putting it on your pinky finger. And if you need convincing, Sonny Landreth is who I've referred to in the past. I'm going to refer to him again. Just put his name in the chat. He puts a slide on his pinky finger, and then he does all sorts of cool stuff at the same time, not taking the slide away, but at the same time, he'll essentially change the sound the slide is getting because of what these fingers are doing. How cool is that? That's one of many reasons I encourage you to put the slide on your pinky finger. The thing about slide guitar that I want to impress upon you, it requires way more listening to yourself, critical listening, than fretted guitar. When you play the guitar like a normal person, you have so much wiggle room. You can put your index finger anywhere between 4 and 5, and realistically, it's going to sound like the same thing. See, I move my finger, no difference in the sound. Slide guitar, you fret right above you put the slide right above the fret. Here I am, right above the 5th fret. I know it's hard to see, but take my word for it. And a little bit in either direction sounds bad. You are out of tune. You should practice more. It's not forgiving. It's, so you got to listen to yourself. You have to be correct, self-correcting. So that is a big difference. It's more akin to playing the violin than to playing the guitar. It's a big difference. You can still use the frets as guides, but it's a big difference. And some other tips I have real quick, and then we'll move on. I can't 100% explain this. I play slide better. Since I have this guitar here, I play slide guitar better when it is resting on my left leg, my opposite leg. I don't know if it has to do purely with the hand position, or this is out of tune right now, I apologize, or the fact that my eye's right there. One day I tried it, I felt better, I played better, specifically slide guitar, when it was resting on my left leg, and I put my left foot up on something, some sort of footrest. Try it out. If you're pursuing slide guitar, put your left foot on some sort of, I was going to say the yellow pages. Does anyone even talk about the yellow pages anymore? Put your left foot on something. You could buy a guitar stand, a guitar foot stand, whatever. But then put the guitar on your left leg and see if that doesn't help your slide playing. It definitely makes me that much better as a slide player. And it probably goes without saying, you guys, if you ask about slide, but slide guitar is done primarily, and you should do it primarily, with an open tuning, not the standard tuning, especially early on. Slide guitar, retune your guitar to an open tuning, and there's videos and people can help you with this, but slide guitar is primarily not done in standard tuning. If you see someone doing slide guitar in standard tuning, that's cool. That is not what I would describe as the art of slide guitar. That's someone who knows how to use a slide and is playing cool stuff. But when I hear beautiful, beautiful music done with a slide, it's done in some form of altered tuning or alternate tuning, typically to an open chord, open G, open E, whatever. Okay, so I hope some of those tips help. Let's see, my friends. Charlie Beagle asks a great question. Do you, me, Jonathan, have formal training in music theory? Yes. In the sense that even as a young guy studying drums and percussion, we talked about, what it means to play a major scale. But it wasn't until I got into guitar playing that I learned a lot more music theory. Here's the interesting thing about music theory. A little bit goes a long way. You can learn a little bit of music theory, and that will help explain so much of the music around you. Popular music in general, rock, country, folk, blues, bluegrass, just your basic popular music, is not sophisticated music in terms of the music theory, the harmonies and the chord progressions and stuff like that. It's not particularly sophisticated. It doesn't require 4 years of music school to understand why certain chords sound good together. So don't underestimate the value of putting in a little sweat and learning a little bit about music theory. Once you get into jazz, more sophisticated, say a Steely Dan. I use Steely Dan as an example because Steely Dan is right on the line between, poppy, rock and roll, bluesy, whatever you want to call Steely Dan's vibe, whatever they're doing, right? And some jazzy harmonies played by sophisticated musicians. To me, they represent someone who's, you can't fake a Steely Dan song, right? You just can't. You got to know what you're doing. On the other hand, Steely Dan songs are doable. I mean, you can learn how to play them. The chord changes and stuff, they're not, the information is out there. But that's, if you say, pick some moment when Steely Dan put out a new album in the 1970s, say, and compare to whatever else is on the charts, at the same time, they're contemporaries. Yeah, the Steely Dan stuff is more advanced in terms of the music theory than their contemporaries, for sure, without a doubt. Okay. But yes, so I have, and I'm the kind of person who I will get like a book about music theory to take me to the next level. I mean, more advanced. I love music theory. I think it's great because I want to know. I want to know, how did this person, when they wrote the song, how they know to put an augmented chord right there? Let's, I assume they didn't just guess and say, I'm going to put an augmented chord all of a sudden. Like, well, how they know, and then how can I incorporate that into my life? So yeah, thanks for asking. Music theory, beautiful thing. Okay, scrolling down. Charlie mentioned that Last Kiss has the same chords as Stand By Me. That sounds about right. Yeah. I remember in the 90s, Pearl Jam did that song Last Kiss, their cover of that song. And so many of my students at that time were like, oh, this amazing song, I got to learn it. And it's just interesting to me because I stay in one place and culture happens. And so suddenly I get a lot of requests for, hey, can we learn how to play Last Kiss? Nirvana, becomes big in the early 90s. And I get a wave of people, hey, I want to learn some Nirvana songs. Okay, let's do that, So that was such a big deal, man. That and continues to be a big deal. Last Kiss, specifically the Pro Jam version of Last Kiss. Very interesting. Okay. Charlie Beagle, the waiting list is not about subscribers for YouTube. It's about people who would like to take some lessons from me. That's the waiting list. Yeah, no waiting list for subscribers. You should all subscribe it now. Scott asked a good question. Scott says, I've learned several chords, but when I'm noodling, I tend to go back to the same 5 or so. As a teacher, is that something you discourage? I would say 2 things. Have fun with what you already know how to do. Definitely. There's a songbook out there. It's called the GCD songbook. And they take 1 million songs and show you what order to put the G's and C's and D's. In fact, I think there's 2 copies of it, the GCD songbook. So nothing wrong with taking what what you're good at and having fun, because that's noodling. Like you're right. But yeah, you also have to discipline yourself to learn new chords or to go back to the chords that you never really got good at and really truly master them. Speaking of which, now is a good time to mention. Okay, you heard my last live stream. You heard me plugging my series of books. In the Guitar Year 1 electronic book, I present to you the 16 chords you cannot live without. The 16 chords you must learn, the majors, minors, and sevenths. So whatever among those 16, whatever chords among those 16 majors and minors and seventh chords you're not good at, yeah, don't go to sleep at night tonight until you've, owned up to the fact that, hey, maybe you haven't quite got F perfect, consistently good every time, B7, B minor. So I hope I'm answering your question. Nothing wrong with having fun. There we go. With having fun with what you are already good at. That is why it's called playing the guitar, right? We're playing. If you're good at 5 chords, by the way, congratulations on getting good at 5 chords. That's something, it's lots of people in the world don't know any chords. You've got 5 of them. That's excellent. Plus, put a capo on. Now you're playing those 5 chords in different keys. Life is good. But yeah, no, I would, if you were my student, and I would say, hey man, good job on those 5 chords, but until you've got all 16 down, you still got room to go. Jay Cinnamon says, what may be a suggested strategy for strumming, etc., to keep sore shoulder and fatigue to a minimum or avoided while practicing and playing? Yeah, aches and pains, right? Aches and pains. Believe it or not, I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't stop me from having medical opinions. So the guitar asks your body to do weird things. And so number 1, you got to stand up once in a while, especially if you're like, ooh, I got an hour to practice. I'm home alone. I'm going to practice for an hour. Great. Every 10 minutes, stand up, shake it out. You can't hunch over like this. You gotta stretch. Don't do the same thing over and over again, right? Sounds counterintuitive. The teacher's telling you, stop. You did it for 10 minutes. Stop. Move on to something else. For example, bar chords. I can imagine a lot of you are committed people and you want to get good at something. And so you do the same thing minute after minute. I'm sorry, at a certain point, okay, you did what you did for today. Good job. Stand up, stretch out, move on to something else. You can't, you got to think long term. Even though I know you want to get good at it, you don't want to wait till Christmas. You want to get good at it in the next few days. Believe me, I get it. But I'm just reacting to things that I've observed among students. Another thing I've observed, how you sit, where you sit, what you sit on is very significant. In a perfect world, you would move between several appropriate, pieces of furniture as you practice. It's not, you got to have good posture. You got to have good posture, relatively speaking. You can't crane your neck like this, even though you want to look, right? Especially in early days. A sign of someone who's in the early stages of playing the guitar is the classic head tilt, right? You tell me when you ever see, Eric Clapton with his head like this, but it's okay. In the beginning, you got to look, right? But you also have to grow out of that, get past that stage. Otherwise, you're going to have aches and pains. Don't sit in the sofa like this. Don't do it. Don't do it. You got to have a decent chair, decent posture, get a cushion. Not a bad idea to rotate. Play 10 minutes in one chair, 20 minutes in another chair, rotate. Our good friend, the music stand. Please get a music stand. Just get one. It doesn't have to be these expensive $50, $60 cast iron music stands. Any music stand is better than no music stand. People spread out the music in front of them and they do this and they do this, and I don't recommend it. So J Cinema, hopefully some of these are relevant. A little bit of aches and pains come with the territory, a little bit, but always listen to your body. Worst case scenario is you do something to the point where you can't play the guitar for a day or two or a week or a month or whatever the case happens to be. We want to avoid that at all costs. Okay, water break. Much better. Okay. I see our moderator is mentioning that keeping language and subject matter appropriate. Get it together, people. Get it together. We're here to talk about the guitar and joy and happiness. So let's keep it there. I know I've mentioned this a couple of times. I got to do it again. No live stream next Saturday. My son is going to senior prom, and I want to be involved with that. So no live stream next Saturday. I'll be thinking of you. I'm hoping my wife will go out with me, and maybe we'll get some cocktails and appetizers and relax and enjoy a beautiful spring evening. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay. RP, you are making such a good point here, RP. You don't have a specific question, but I'm going to treat it as a question. RP says, anytime I play or practice, I lose all mindset and speed up or forget. On my own, I'm okay. Help. I'm glad you brought it up. And here's one thing I notice. People speed up as they work harder and get frustrated. And very few people, despite the fact that I practically beg like this, very few people have the discipline, especially when they're working hard on something they care about. Very few people have the discipline to stop playing for a moment, take a freaking breath, and play it again slower. I'm only half joking when I say I'm going to get a tattoo right here that says slow down, exclamation point. Because then I wouldn't even have to talk. I would sit there and read a cool magazine, and I just point to my forehead and go back to reading my magazine. If you have the discipline to do what I just said, you are unstoppable on the guitar. Take a breath, stop playing for a minute, take a breath, shake out your hands for a second, and play it significantly slower. I use the example of slow motion in sports, right? Slow motion. You know how few people can do that? I say slow down. And best case scenario, my current student at the moment plays 1% slower. It's imperceptible. So that's why I'm speaking to you, honestly, that I honestly believe it is a gift to be able to, especially in the heat of the moment and something just sucks and it's not going well, and please do yourself a favor. I challenge you to do that. Okay, you get the idea. So RP, I'm not sure if that, you didn't ask a specific, well, you said help. So help is a question. So I'm just reacting. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. Playing with a metronome, right? The thing that clicks, the metronome. By the way, you can buy a metronome or you can just get an app. I will tell you a metronome app that works well for me. It's called Stage Metronome. I'm going to put the name here, Stage Metronome. I'm going to put it in the chat. Stage Metronome is a free app, and I just like it. Only stop you from spending your money and getting a $20, $30, $40, $50 metronome. But playing with a metronome, in theory, should slow you down. But that suggests that you have the ability to submit to the metronome. The metronome is always right. And if you're not with the metronome, you are always wrong. But at least the metronome can say, okay, you set me at 60 beats per minute. I'm going to do it until my battery wears out or until your phone dies. That potentially for those of you who are willing to work with a metronome, which I recommend, that's one way to make sure you don't speed up. Set it at a slow speed and stay there until you can play it perfectly. Also requires discipline, but it's not a bad idea. Okay. Music Fan says, yay, it's a date. Thanks, Music Fan. All right. Well, we got appetizers and drinks. That's my wife. So, okay, you guys bear with me. I'm scrolling up, and don't forget, we have a poll up at the top of the page. I'll look at the poll results in a minute. Harmonica and Guitar Progress says, we're talking about his guitar that was converted right-handed, left-handed, back and forth. Yep, he says the Gibson guitar that he owns originally had an adjustable bridge, kind of a mechanical adjustable bridge, and now it has a new bridge that's not adjustable. That's probably a step in the right direction in terms of the sound quality. But still, you want to bring it to a guitar tech and describe the situation. Everything technically is adjustable. So I'll show you what I mean. Instead of a drastic thing where literally they unglue this wooden bridge here, they unglue it, either make a new one from scratch or have an appropriate one that's pre-made and glue it back down, and then cut a new slot for the saddle, put a new saddle in, all that work, which is not a bad idea, just it's really expensive and should only be done by a total pro. Another option that I believe exists is take off the strings, take out the saddle, fill the saddle slot with hard stuff. This is this is above my pay grade, but I believe it's a doable thing. And then recut a new saddle slot going in the appropriate direction. I assume you need a whole new saddle to be on the safe side. I think they would use a whole new saddle. And then you're up and running without the crazy expense and time involved in ungluing the bridge and putting it back down. But again, you want to find the right person who has done that before and knows what to do. So okay. All right. Susan asks, why is hybrid picking not taught to beginners? Excellent question. You guys have such good questions, man. One thing that I've noticed, where am I looking for? There we go. Interestingly, my one-on-one students don't ask me that many questions. And it could be just because I talk so much about the skill at hand that they don't have any questions. But I really enjoy these live stream chats because it feels good to answer questions. So Susan, hybrid picking, just so we're all on the same page, she's asking about hybrid picking. Hybrid picking is when you are definitely holding a pick and you incorporate using your bare fingers. If you're super lucky, you could grow out your fingernails a little bit. Or some people actually wear, I don't necessarily recommend this, but it's not against the law by any means. I'm going to put this on my middle finger. They might even wear commonly a metal finger picker, metal finger pick. it's put on as a reverse fingernail. See that? I'm going to hold it up to the camera. The lighting is not great. So a reverse fingernail. Okay. It doesn't cover my fingernail. It's the opposite. Okay. People use those in general, but I digress. Okay. Why is it not taught to beginners? Beginners have so much on their plate. They just do, or put it this way. One sign that a beginner is growing into what I would call the intermediate stage is that potentially you could incorporate some hybrid picking, Boy, this is a little bit out of tune. Okay, but I'll address that. So hybrid picking in whatever form. I mean, once you talk about hybrid picking, the opportunities are infinite, right? Because you have one pick and then 1, 2, 3 possible other fingers. Typically, you might not use your pinky. I'm just saying the possibilities are endless for hybrid picking. So it's not that hybrid picking itself has to be difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's just that what I would call a beginner has so much on their plate. They're working on getting a C chord to sound good every time, and as they should. So I wouldn't introduce hybrid picking until it was relevant. I am currently using my Guitar Tuna app on my phone. Oh, sure, it says I'm in tune. I'm going to put that in the chat here. I'm sure there's plenty of guitar tuning apps, but Guitar Tuna, hey, it works for me. It's free, and it's always on my phone. The only problem with an external tuning device is a little siren there, is it doesn't work in a noisy environment, right? If a fire truck goes by or something, as opposed to the clip-on tuners, which are literally reading the vibrations, they're counting the vibrations sent, through the neck, and then it doesn't matter what's going on. Advantages and disadvantages. Okay. Let me see here. Scrolling. Bear with me, folks. I appreciate your patience. So I'm going to try to wrap this up in the next 15 minutes or so, you guys. So maybe no more questions at the moment, okay? We'll save the questions for 2 weeks from today so I can finish up these questions. Hey, before I forget, please head over to my website and save 15% on ebooks or my hard copy book. The coupon code is Livestream15, Livestream, all one word, 15. Scroll up towards the top of the chat. I mentioned there. My website, song-bike.com. Help yourself to all the goodies. 15% off only during the live stream, okay? So now's the time to do it. Okay. North Country Fisher says, is it possible to strum with a thumb pick? Yeah, I don't recommend it, but I'm sure there's some famous person out there that does it. I'm grabbing my thumb pick here. By the way, a couple little quick things about thumb picks. It can be hard to find, I think they call them extra large. I would just say it's a large. I don't have extra large thumbs, but it can be hard to find thumb picks that fit comfortably if you have even halfway adult size hands. So if you are curious about thumb picks and you have just adult hands, consider getting what they call extra large. It might even be hard to find, but don't be surprised if you get large and it's too tight. Don't be surprised. Also, thumb picks, I want to make sure you can see this okay. They typically extend out to a pretty significant point. And the understanding is that people like you and me will grind them down a little bit through whatever means necessary. I think I literally held this up against a grinding wheel. I got it spinning, just held it up against it and shaved it down. You can use a file. But if you have a thumb pick and it feels like your thumb pick keeps you pretty far away from the strings, you just grind it down. That's all. Don't buy just one thumb pick, especially if you like it, buy a dozen of them. But your question was, can you strum with a thumb pick? You can. And I'm sure there's some famous person out there that does it. I don't recommend it. If there's any advantage, you're never going to drop it. I guess that's an advantage. To me, I feel so strongly about the different sounds and effects you can get. I know I'm turning this way. The different sounds and effects you can get by slight changes in the pressure between your thumb pressing the pick up against your index finger, and I don't feel you can get those subtle changes just by strumming the thumb pick. Now, if we're talking about strumming, I'm not talking about proper, beautiful finger picking. I'm talking about strumming with a pick the same way you would. It's like a nice little bluegrassy thing or something. There's no advantage to doing it with a thumb pick, and it might even be less, you might be less capable. Having said that, anything you can imagine, there is some highly competent, awesome guitar player in the world that does that thing. So I'm speaking in super general terms. I won't give you weird examples because you can imagine weird examples. Any weird thing you can imagine, somebody out there is doing it and sounding great doing it. So I figure I pass on the conventional way of doing things and let you come to terms with it, Okay. Oh, RP. I see. You're clarifying. Yeah, you play faster in front of people because you get nervous. I have done that many times. And then you play worse because you're playing faster because you never intended to go that fast. And then you walk home that night or take the train home or go home. I remember this well and think, oh, I suck. When in reality, you took one song too fast and didn't play it very well. But you go to sleep at night thinking all those negative thoughts. So I'm using the word discipline a lot today. It takes discipline to, in between songs, you're about to play, this song that we're talking about now, and you say to yourself, oh yeah, this is when I typically speed up and get nervous, and I'm just not going to let that happen this time. And if anything, you start off a little bit slower, do a little intro. You can always speed up a little bit, but it's almost like you have to pay your dues. You have to have that negative experience, like, crap, I did that thing. Maybe even have to do it twice. I played it too fast because I was nervous in front of people. And then you finally kick yourself and you say, well, here I am again playing my coffee house gig, my church gig, my jam session with my friends, whatever it happens to be. I'm not going to do that thing I always do. So mind over matter. Yeah, that's what it takes, taking a breath. But that's performance 101 anyways, right? Always being present in the moment. And I have made those mistakes. I'm only half joking when I say I'm qualified to do my job here because I've made more mistakes than you guys. Sorry. Sorry, that's how it is. You make enough mistakes, they call you an instructor, a professor. Yeah. I've made them all. Well, I've made plenty. I've made my share, that's for sure. Party Marty. Wait, so Joseph, Party Marty is not Marty Schwartz. He's another guy. Okay. I need a name like that, man. I need a name. Party Marty. Okay. Cinema Music says pick angle is also key to attack accuracy tone. What are your thoughts on pick angle? Yep. I should. You're correct, and I don't have any deep thoughts except, in general, you want the pick to squarely go across the string at let's call it a 90-degree angle, in a very obvious thing. What I will say is that we tend to strum across the strings in general, not at what I'm going to call a 90-degree angle, but, our hands naturally move this way. And could that lead to some problems? It could. So I'm not going to say you constantly have to be monitoring your pick angle, but there are times when it sure is important to hit the string nice and squarely, and times when you definitely don't want to hear that horrible sound, hit it at some sort of angle. Not that you would do that. That's an extreme thing. So cinema music, the pick angle is especially significant if you're working on playing super duper fast. And guess who doesn't play super duper fast? This guy. I'm working on it. but I'm going to defer to other experts out there who have videos called, play lightning fast in 3 days or whatever. And I would hope that they address the pick angle thing, but I won't get into it too much. Okay. Charlie Beagle says, "Can you wear the slide on your index finger?" See, I should read the question before I read the question. Can you put the slide on your index finger and play all your bar chords? No. Nope. You can tune your guitar to an open tuning. Imagine this is tuned to an open G tuning. So it's automatically a G chord, right? And then when you squeeze down hard, wherever you squeeze down, you get another major chord. But you're still, the muscles that are required there, it's still a certain amount of muscle that's required. Okay. Tommy says, I'm going to read the question before I read the question. Okay, I like that question. Tommy says, you are a gifted teacher. Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your music. Any tips for figuring out the key to a song you're listening to? Yeah. And then figuring out simple 3 or 4 note riffs, especially bluesy riffs, I take it, right? In that key. Great question. That's a big question. It's a good question. That's a big question. So I'm going to give you a short answer, but I would love to come back to this next time. Remember, no chat next week. I'll see you in 2 weeks. So Tommy, come back in 2 weeks. I'm going to answer your question quickly now, but come back in 2 weeks and ask it again, or somebody else ask this question again in 2 weeks. Okay. Figuring out the key. Let's do that first. What key is a song in? If you can find the chords online, often the key you're in is the same as the name of the first chord. Often. I didn't say always. Often. So when if you see what the first chord is, that's a good guess. If the song is presented to you in a way where it's clear what the very last chord is, the very last chord, right when the, and it's really clear what the last chord is, in this case a G. I gave it a little build up. I was on a D7, and there's a little melodic. The last chord, if it sounds like that, is always the key you're in. That's how you know the song is truly done, because the band has come to the very, not just the last chord chronologically, but the chord that gives you that sense of resolution, okay? So if the last chord is obvious, then yeah, you can always trust the last chord. You can most of the time trust the first chord, but not always. Don't yell at me in the chat. I know it doesn't always work that way, but it works often enough that that's part of the answer to your question. If you do not have all the chords presented to you, or if my little system here does not work, I get it, that's fine. Then you're going by ear. And oh, by the way, this presumes that you don't have the printed music in front of you, or that you don't know how to read music, which I get, believe me, I get. If you have the printed music in front of you, then you look at the key signature. Oh, 1 sharp in the key signature. Great, we're in the key of G. 1 sharp in the key signature, key of G, or potentially the key of E minor, the relative minor. Okay, but I'm going to presume that you don't have that information. So you're stuck by figuring out by ear. And what you're looking for is the tonal center, T-O-N-A-L, the tonal center of the song, which sounds like, you have to climb to a mountaintop and find the tonal center. If only it were that easy. What you have to do is hunt and peck. I'm going to, use the bass string as an example. You have to, play different notes. I recommend doing it on the fat E string. You don't have to, and looking for that one note that just makes sense, that seems to just feel good in your soul, that more times than not, that note just seems to fit with whatever's going on in the song. So you're going to have the song playing on Spotify, your turntable, however you listen to the song, and you got to hunt for that note. Is that easy? Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it's frustrating. You get better at it over time. It helps if you're working on a very simple song. A 3-chord folk song is an easier way than finding out what key. I'm going to use Steely Dan as an example. Good luck doing it on the Steely Dan tune. You might not. I would not recommend using a Steely Dan song as a method to working on your ear for this. I'd recommend a nice 3-chord folk tune, you know. And bluesy riffs that sound good, you would want to know a pentatonic scale. And I'll give you a quick example. But even then, you'd have to know what to do with that pentatonic scale. I'm going to do a pentatonic scale based on the 5th fret. And some of you who know what I'm about to do, you can play along with me, okay? Starting on the fat string, 5-8, and then 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, and then on the 2 skinny strings, you're back to 5-8, 5-8, a pentatonic scale. That's sort of the, I would call it the most user-friendly way of playing a pentatonic scale. Slide that up and down the neck until you find the version that fits your song. Again, this is a short answer to your question. Once you find that, then the riffs are waiting for you within that scale. I apologize if that's not a, we're just scratching the surface, but that gets you up and running. Put it this way, that skill that I showed you is so important for so many reasons. Spend a little time mastering that scale. If you haven't already, maybe you have, because that scale, that pattern is going to be your source for lots of stuff, including bluesy riffs. Yeah. And for those of you out there who know there's more to that answer that I'm giving, patience. I'll get there. And if, don't worry. Okay. Hey, everybody, let's jump up for a moment and look at this poll question up at the top of the page. I'm going to see how I can look at this. I'm going to end the poll right now, okay? So I'm end poll, and let's see the poll results. Can I scroll up and see the poll results? How do we get to the poll results? Come on. Okay, here we are. Remember the question, especially for those of you who had joined us partway through, the question was, if you could pick a superpower, would you choose the superpower where you have a photographic memory, so you never have to look at the music after the first glance, and then you can play everything, just you can look at your hands, that's great. Or, which sounds good, right? It sounds fantastic. Why wouldn't you not want that superpower? Or would you like to have a superpower where you never have to look at your hands, but you always have to have something in front of you to know what to play? You have essentially no memory, but your hands can play without looking. Okay, and so survey says, do you guys, maybe you guys see this too in the live chat, by a wide margin, you guys are electing to have the superpower where your hands can play without looking at your hands whatsoever, but you are trapped forever into carrying around pages and pages and pages of printed out material. So that means when you go to a party, a barbecue, a cookout, and someone says, oh, you play the guitar, play something, you have to, find some printed material to look from. I'm not saying that's a wrong answer, but that's the scenario. So you guys, by 2/3, 62% to 37%, you're voting for that superpower. And only 1/3 of you say, I would rather have a photographic memory, and then I could just look at my hands while I play. Interesting. And again, I don't know why, but I think we're onto something here. So I'm going to think about your answers to this, and maybe we can chat about it in the live stream. Okay, enough about that. You guys are getting into this with this party Marty and all that stuff. Okay, scrolling. So I'm looking for a few more questions. We're going to wrap up pretty soon, you guys. If you have a question that I have not answered today, let's get together and do this again next in 2 weeks. Scrolling. Okay, I'm looking for those question marks. I see lots of good information here. Lots of people are talking about their personal experiences, and I think that's great. Mr. Ed says, my wife is a metronome. She's always right, and if I disagree, I'm always wrong. Yes. Okay. Beginner Guitar says, Jonathan, a good way to remember the circle of fifths. Yeah, the circle of fifths, that's a whole nother can of worms. The circle of fifths is a tool. And I say that because, like any tool, you can do a lot with it. It's not like you've got a hammer, you do one job, and you put the hammer away. You keep your hammer handy because you're going to need it for a variety of things during a lifetime, right? And the circle of fifths is just that. I'm going to assume that some of you already know what the circle of fifths is. And those of you who don't, let's talk about it in the future, because we spoke about music theory earlier, and the circle of fifths is a huge help. It's a valuable tool in wrapping your head around why songs sound good, and what it means that a song sounds like a song and not a bunch of random sounds. So a good way to remember the circle of fifths. Part of it is just pure memorization. There's some things, and I bet you guys have this in your jobs as well. You have no choice, just memorize it. You just suck it up and memorize it. And it helps you do your job, and you're glad that you memorize, and you can't imagine doing your job without having that information memorized. Or put it this way, you realize that you're much better at your job now that you have something specifically memorized. Now you can, So do I have a good way? Well, it is not a very profound way. We have a C at the top of the circle of fifths, and then moving around clockwise, G, D, A, E. Those first handful of letters, to me, it always sounded like all those great people from Australia saying, good day, mate. So G, D, A, E, good day. I know it's not profound, like I said. And then you just remember after the A, it just, next comes B, next comes F sharp, next comes C sharp. So at the moment, I don't have any great way to do that. I will say that those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, go online, type in circle of fifths. I'm going to put it in the chat here, just the phrase that we're talking about, just in case. Fifths. Find a copy, a one-page document, circle of fifths, print it out, stick it, somewhere where you can see it, and start looking at it, because we can talk about it some more in the future. Okay. I'm reading. Hey, Billy Swainson. Hope you're doing well too. Debbie S says, I have to write the word slow all over my lead sheets. That's brilliant. It's brilliant. I don't have a better suggestion than that in terms of having a discipline to make sure you don't go too fast. 100%. Whatever it takes. Hey, Paul. Paul says, hi, Jonathan. Just got in. Hope you've had a musical week. Have to watch on catch up. Yeah. So everybody, this whole thing is being recorded. You can watch it again Monday. I watch it myself and put in timestamps, which it's quite a workout. So because I put a lot of time in, now is a good time to remind you, hey, give me some money. No, but if those of you are inclined, I do 100% appreciate the super chat option that you have, that $sign down at the bottom of the screen. For those of you who have already donated, or for those of you who are considering it, I do appreciate it. So thank you. Okay. Jeff, I appreciate your comment, Jeff. Jeff says, I'm excited to do your boot camp. What a great idea. Yeah, the Beatles boot camp video I hope to do a number of these. I'm a nice guy, and I'm too nice. So what I don't say is, hey, idiot, if it says do a downstroke, I don't want your opinion on what your arm feels like doing. Shut up and do the downstroke. I can't imagine saying that to a fellow human being. I think it all the time. In case you want to know what I'm thinking about when I'm doing a lesson, with my students who I love, who literally pay my mortgage for me and will help put my son through college in September. In my mind, I'm thinking, index finger means index finger. Why on earth would you ever do something different than that when the teacher who you're paying is telling you to use your index finger, right? So the idea of these boot camp videos is I become slightly less nice, and I present information to you, and I say things like, you have to use your pinky, in the hopes that you use your freaking pinky, because that's what you do, as opposed to telling the teacher that you don't feel like using your pinky, that your ring finger feels more natural. So I plan on doing a series of videos called Boot Camp Challenges, where I present information, and I'm very clear about what you do. And if you do those things, you become a better guitar player. And so I chose a bunch of short Paul McCartney bass lines from 10, I think it was 10 Beatles songs. And the fact that it's bass lines, the significance there is they sound perfectly fine on 6-string guitar, and they 100% require you to be very disciplined about which fretting fingers you use, and also pick direction, downs and ups, if you want to play it anywhere nearly as beautifully as Paul McCartney plays. But they're short, so you memorize it and you work. And no matter what you thought you were going to practice or what you felt like practicing, no, it's boot camp. You do it because I said to do it, because I know it's going to make you a better guitar player, right? So, so I hope to do more with other themes, short stuff, exact information about how to play it well. And then it's up to you to do it 100 times, because it's boot camp. You wouldn't click on it expecting it to be like less than boot camp. Boot camp means you do it because you want to become a better guitar player, not because anyone cares about your opinion about how you wish you could do it. Imagine telling a boot camp instructor that you'd prefer to do 5 push-ups instead of 25 push-ups, because that's the mood you're in. So if you click on something that says boot camp, you know, what do you expect? Anyways, so I'm glad you like that. I appreciate that, Jeff. Tommy says, does that pentatonic pattern work on every fret? Yes. A lot of things on the guitar, you learn a certain pattern, whatever you learn, anything. Could be a D chord. And it's still a beautiful sound when you move up 1 fret. As long, in the case of a D chord, as long as you only strum the ones you're touching. So whether it's a chord, or certain chords work better than others, but a chord or a scale pattern, yeah, you learn it, and then you move all that information up. Not only are you supposed to do that, but it's great for your brain. Awesome for those of you who want to keep your brain healthy as you get older, like me. We're all getting older. Yeah, man, you learn something and then push yourself to keep doing the same pattern, but higher or lower, whatever, up and down the neck. Awesome for the health of your brain, and 100% related to your progress as a guitar player. You want to be able to do that. Okay, Brian O'Donnell. Hey, Brian. Jonathan, is it always best to use a metronome when practicing guitar strums? Also, is it better to break songs into chunks? Yes, I'm a big fan of metronomes, but we all should be big fans of metronomes. If you can't play with a metronome, you have to learn how to. Secondly, get some help. Ideally with a guitar teacher, really any music teacher can help you with that process. So is it always best to use a metronome? In principle, yeah, it is. But here's a time when you don't have to use a metronome. When you're first learning some new skill, go easy on yourself. You got to digest whatever the skill is. So there are definitely times when you do a bit of work and get familiar with something, and then you graduate to the level where it makes sense to work with a metronome. Is it better to break songs into chunks? Yes, it's better to break everything into chunks. With my students, I use the example of a pizza. Imagine you get the pizza delivered to your house and they haven't sliced the pizza. Or you get delivered to your table at the restaurant and the waiter or waitress walks away and they haven't cut it for you and they disappear. And you got to go find a waiter or waitress or find one of those cool pizza cutters, right? Everything, slice up everything. Things don't, how could you process it without slicing it up? So that's a great question. Yep. My pizza metaphor. Jeff asks, ever hear of, and I'm just going to pronounce the name wrong, but I have heard that name, Boubacar Traoré, Traoré. Yeah, I listen to a lot of world music, and I definitely have heard that name. But you reminded me to check it out. My wife is texting, and I almost wonder if she's texting during the chat here because she thinks it's probably about time for me to wrap up. Yeah, this is the previous 2 live streams have been about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So. Okay, sweetie, I'm wrapping up. I will. Hey, Jeff, thanks. Jeff says, you're my favorite guitar teacher on YouTube. Thanks so much. I appreciate that, Jeff. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to scroll through the last few things. No more questions, though, folks. Okay, no more questions. Joseph, I appreciate those nice words. Cinema music, I appreciate. Yeah, thanks for staying up late. Cinema music 55, late night in England. You don't know, that means a lot to me that someone's I'm disturbing someone's sleep patterns. I appreciate that. I understand that. Okay. Okay. Charlie Beagle went through Marine Corps boot camp. So Charlie, thank you for your patience in me acting like a boot camp guy when it doesn't come naturally, but you get my point. There's a time to share your opinions with the class, and there's a time to just buckle down and become a significantly better guitar player. And ultimately, that's what I'm hoping to help you guys with. Okay, so let's call it, everybody. How about no more chats? Unless you want to say good night or goodbye or something, that's fine. But no more questions, please. Hey, Mike, you're welcome. Thanks, Mike. Nice, pleasant approach. Really, even my boot camp thing didn't put anyone off, because I know I come across as a nice guy. But, I think any guitar teacher, if they're being honest with you, they have patience. You got to have patience. But sometimes it's dumbfounding when you give instruction and somehow there's a disconnect. But like I said, number one, I love all my students. We're all doing the best we can, including me. And that's all you can ask from another human being. What I'll notice sometimes, to be fair, sometimes a student is so focused and so engrossed and working so hard that they don't hear my little reminders to do something with a pinky. And that's awesome. I mean, sometimes I'll sit while a student repeats the same thing 10 times in a row or more, and I'll be ready to move on. I see that they understand the task at hand. They are doing it correctly over and over again. And I've learned over the years to just, if a student is doing something correctly, voluntarily, over and over and over again, who am I to stop that? Even if my own agenda is, I got to show you how the bridge goes, or don't forget, I wanted to show you that, or you asked me about how to play a blues scale, whatever. If you, meaning, my guitar student, anyone out there, if you are voluntarily working hard, doing something over and over again, yeah, it's not my job to stop that. Sometimes if it's a little bit off and it's a debate, I think, I got to fix that one finger, but maybe I'll give them two more times through before I stop them and fix that finger, because I appreciate the spirit of that. Someone's working hard, man. Like, that's awesome. So okay. Paul says, see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Paul. Okay, everybody. So as I say goodnight, there are some things I forgot to say last time. I thought, how could I not say this? Number one, thank you for sticking with me. Or if you joined late, thank you for joining late. For those of you who are watching this as a rebroadcast on YouTube, hope that you can join us on another Saturday. No live stream. Next Saturday, next Saturday will be June 3rd. No live stream June 3rd. I hope to see you again on June 10th, 5 p.m. Eastern. I do have a Patreon page. I believe it's, go to Patreon instead of search for the word Songbike, SONGBIKE. You can support what I do over there on Patreon. That'll get you some free stuff. And I appreciate that. If you haven't seen my first boot camp challenge video, hope you check it out. Go to my YouTube channel, and it's my most recent one. I'm curious what you think about it. There's 10 tunes on there, so check it out. It's not too late to save 15% on any of this stuff. Head over to song-bike.com. That's my website. The coupon code is Livestream15, Livestream15. That gets you 15% off, with my thanks. Thank you to Beginner Guitar for moderating tonight. As far as I can tell, he kept you guys in line. I can't read all the chats quick enough, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Beginner Guitar. I thank you for giving me the chance to throw out some names here of some guitar players that are out there that you may not have heard of before, like Molly Tuttle, for example. And also, I hope you guys check out that Ry Cooder track called Lipstick Sunset. Sorry, John Hiatt track, Lipstick Sunset, with that beautiful Ry Cooder slide guitar solo. Every time we do one of these live streams, I'd like to suggest a few things that mean a lot to me, and I hope you guys like it. Can't say goodbye without saying Happy Memorial Day. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Last thing, some of you might have been around earlier when I mentioned a video that I'm going to be working on where I take one song, in this case it's going to be Stand By Me, and I'm going to use that song as a vehicle for challenging you to see how good your skills are. So right now I have it divided up into 9 sections. That could change, but Stand By Me, easy, medium, and hard, basically. And you can guide yourself and say, okay, can I do it the easy way? Got it. Can I do it a little bit harder? Got it. And you can see, where you fall in terms of the skills that I'm presenting in there. Just a fun thing that can be eye-opening for you. The things that you are capable of, you can give yourself a pat in the back saying, playing the bass line, got it, piece of cake. The things that are a challenge for you, hey, now you can say, oh, whoa, I can almost do this thing, I can't quite get it. It's a chance for you to gauge your progress. So that video is going to be coming out hopefully in the next week. And I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but it's going to be based on the good old Stand By Me. Whew. Okay, any more things here? Thanks. Brian says, great show again, Jonathan. Thanks. Good night. Harmonic and guitar progress. Tommy says, don't leave your date waiting. Didn't say you and your wife had a date. Well, I hope it sounds great to me. I was just saying how my son is going to the prom next Saturday night. That's where I'll be involved in making sure he's having gets off to a great start. So, but I was just saying, my wife and I think it'd be great to go have a cocktail and an appetizer. Maybe 2 cocktails and 2 appetizers. That sounds good. So, okay, everybody, I don't have a cue sign off. So thank you. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Think of your questions. Don't forget, you can watch this whole thing again. And Monday, I'll timestamp it. So you can zip ahead to specific questions and answers that you want to revisit or whatever. If I didn't get to your question, let's do it again. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, you guys, see you in 2 weeks. Happy Memorial Day. Thanks, everybody.